Welcome to I Am the Fated Villain. Follow Bu Chang, transported to a world where he outshines Yi Chen, a legendary hero. Adored by women and favored in every aspect, Bu Chang's towering status and immense influence subdue all challengers. Tasked with vanquishing heroes, he strives to become the most infamous villain in the land. Someone angrily declares that today is the day of the enthronement of the holy sons of Taixuan, and asks a man how he can be so reckless in this hall. The man furiously questions if this is the attitude of the so-called Taixuan sacred land, one of the 6 sacred lands in the eastern wilderness. He says they are bullying people and trying to subdue them, and questions how they can give her away to someone they've never met without even asking the will of the saint. If he doesn't get justice for her today, he doesn't want the title of being the disciple of this sacred land. The onlookers wonder if the man Yi Chen is crazy for saying such words in the hall, and remark that even if he has talent, the entirety of the Taixuan Holy Land will be in trouble if he angers the Lord of the upper world. The Lord sitting on his throne asks Yi Chen if he remembers the hundreds of battles he had to go through before he could join the Taixuan Holy Land from the small place in the Sky Green domain. He furiously asks if he wants to give up the title of the disciple of the sacred land now, and emits a dangerous aura, alarming everyone present. Yi Chen declares that he just feels sorry for the saint and can't stand by and watch her being pushed into the fire like that. A man angrily asks Yi Chen who he's calling the fire pit, as the saint slowly calls Mr. Gu's name. Silently seated on a throne, Mr. Gu remarks that as soon as he awoke as a transmigrator, he found himself in an inexplicable position in his current identity, and his character Gu Chang, who looks like a villain, is used as a springboard for the hero in traditional comics. The difference is he has a system whose purpose he himself isn't aware of. He explains that according to the system, the level of luck is divided from low to high as red, orange, green, blue, and purple, and the average ordinary person is just red Kai luck. The young man called Yi Chen has green and really is the proper son of luck, and his is black. He embarrassingly says this village doesn't live long, so this black luck value always reminds him of that. Yi Chen angrily asks Gu Chang if he has something to say for himself. Gu Chang's assistant asks Yi Chen how he dared to call him by name, and an elder tells Yi Chen that he has repeatedly provoked the sect in front of the people today, indicating that he truly has evil intentions. As they're all telling him off, Yi Chen confusingly wonders why everyone's siding with Gu Chang when he has the highest talent and is the future of the sect. Puzzled, he wonders why even the saint, King Ji, isn't speaking for him when they were so close. He furiously asks Gu Chang what he can do other than bullying everyone, so Gu's assistant summons lightning in his hand, declaring that he'll make him apologize. He rushes forward to take him down, but Yi Chen summons fire and tells him to bring it on. The two attacks clash as the onlookers talk down on Yi Chen for fighting against the Sage of Taixuan. Gu silently watches and explains how the leveling system in this world works, remarking that if Yi Chen can't even win a simple cross-level battle, he can't be considered a son of luck. Yi Chen swiftly blocks the sage's attack and pushes him back, seeing which a pair of girls start fawning over him, but are quickly told to quiet down unless they want to offend Mr. Gu as well. Gu remarks that Yi Chen is showing off his amazing skills to the public as expected of the main character. He says it seems like the purpose behind the ruckus Yi Chen is causing today is to prevent Lord Taixuan's daughter from marrying him, which means that Su King is going to be the so-called heroine of this scenario. He tells Su King that it seems like she's always trusted Chen, and asks if she's afraid he'll deal with Chen since she's trying so hard to stay calm. He sets down his cup, so she tries refilling it with tea, but Yu places his hand on hers and asks why she's trembling so much. He tells her to just leave this to the servants, since it would be a pity if her hands got injured. My man has got 10,000 plus aura. The system informs Gu that there was a sudden change in Su King's heart, which has led to main character Yi Chen's luck decreasing by 10. Surprised, Gu wonders what happened as Yi Chen angrily glares at him and asks how he dared to touch her. Gu maliciously smiles and remarks that it seems like things have become a lot more interesting. Yi Chen emits huge spouts of flames in a fit of rage and orders him to get his dirty hands off her, but the sage reminds him that he is the opponent here. Yi Chen asks the sage, Chu Xuan, if he really thinks he wouldn't dare to kill him if he's a holy son. Gu inwardly remarks that it looks like Chen will easily defeat Chu Xuan through his weakness according to the current scenario, and would throw a bet to gain time to stabilize his condition and increase cultivation. With his cultivation talent, Chen would stand in front of him a few years later to avenge the shame he has been met with today, and he will most likely die when that happens. Gu wonders how he doesn't know such a classic scenario when he's a transmigrator, and remarks that he can't let that happen because he can't put his life in the hands of such a crappy script. Gu stands up and steps forward, declaring that he doesn't need to bother Chu Xuan since this matter is related to him and him only. Chen asks if he really thinks he's afraid of him. Gu questions if the cause of his fearlessness is not ignorance and emits a dangerous aura, shocking everyone. Chen tries to bear it, but Gu emits it even more and makes him get down on his knees. The onlookers are shocked at how strong Mr. Gu is when his ki aura is so powerful. They acknowledge that Yi Chen really doesn't know his place as Su King watches Gu in shock. The old man sitting on the throne remarks that Gu's power really should be taken lightly. The system informs Gu that if he hits the Sun of Fortune in public, Yi Chen loses 10 points of fortune and the host's fate value is increased by 50. Gu remarks that since the fate value can be used to add points to increase the skill level, it will naturally increase the cultivation level as well. He faces the system directly and asks the system how much fate value he will get if he kills Yi Chen directly right now. The system states that if he will be protected by heaven, but with his current luck value, he is at risk of having his luck backfire on you. He wonders if this means offending the Sons of Fortune will lead to bad luck and sees that he really is a villain after all. The system states that karma says the gods and demons of the sky is difficult to identify. Gu's current strength to kill Yi Chen is not difficult, but will trigger a series of unknown variables because he is the biggest variable. Gu realizes he can't kill him, but is able to reduce Chen's luck by suppressing it when the time comes. The system agrees and states that those who have a close relationship with the main character are the same. Gu returns to the hall and inwardly remarks that forcing Su King to influence Chen will also not work before the old man happily tells Gu that his cultivation is unpredictable. An onlooker remarks that he really is a god since a mere wisp of his breath makes them tremble with fear. Gu tells them that his strength isn't really worth mentioning, but the others keep praising him for how merciful he is towards Yi Chen. Chen furiously declares that this can't be true and cloaks his fist in flame before rushing towards Gu. Gu doesn't move at all and easily blocks the attack with a transparent wall, shocking everyone as he uses his magic to slam Chen against the wall. An elder furiously declares that Yi Chen disregarded the rules of the sect and offended the guests of honor several times, which is why his cultivation will be immediately blocked and he will be sent to the dungeon where he'll wait for Mr. Gu's decision. A woman says the face of the Taixuan Holy Land has been disgraced by Chen, and a pair of men take him away as he angrily tries to get away. The old man happily says he really is an open-minded character and declares that his daughter will be very happy. Su King hesitates and he inwardly remarks that she can't fail them at this time because the fortune of their sect for the next 100 years is in the hands of this man. Su slowly agrees, bewildering Yi Chen, who passes out as the system informs Gu that Chen's heart state has been damaged and he's lost 100 points in his key luck. Gu remarks that the system is not very effective for this child of destiny, and that this process will slowly drive the main character to his death even if it's a bit troublesome. This man is a man AC. In the night, the old man tells Su King that he knows she's interested in Yi Chen, but Su says she understands that the benefits the Lord will bring them are much better compared to Yi Chen, who just isn't enough. The man regrets what happened with Su, but she says she'll visit him as a man standing on the rooftop eavesdrop on their conversation. Gu asks the man how the conversation's going, so he reveals that the Lord Taixuan called Su King and told her the truth. The Taixuan's sacred ground is now weak and their strongest elder passed away 300 years ago, but the outside world just doesn't know it yet, so Gu is the one they need the most. He adds that the wife of Lord Taixuan is a noble woman from the upper world who was captured by the authorities and sent back to the upper worlds, so the Lord also wants Gu to get in touch with them, so that they can learn more about his wife's whereabouts. Gu sees that he was right and asks him to keep an eye on Yi Chen in the dungeon since he has a great fortune and can make one for him. When the man Go disappears, Gu Chang exasperatedly remarks that playing two different characters is a bit exhausting and silly. The system suddenly congratulates him on the completion of the first game and states that he has successfully passed the newbie period and received a reward. Surprised, Gu quickly opens it and sees that he's received a spell-breaking talisman, 5 color magic clothes, and a broken piece of the world seeds. Gu questions what the last one is, so the system explains that when the complete world seed is refined, it can be used to cultivate a world within the body, and the creation will never end, due to which it will form its own life and death. Gu is surprised to learn that it has a world of its own inside the body and questions when the world will ever be able to kill him if he can gather all the world seeds. He asks the system to give him extra points, which it does. He suddenly emits a powerful aura, shocking the citizens of the Holy Land, who wonders if it's the Lord. Su King reacts alarmingly, and a spirit that resembles her tells her to think about it from another perspective, explaining that Gu Chang is calm and steady and possesses incredible strength. She adds that he's way more interesting than that Yi Chen and remarks that she knows Su because they are, after all, 2 souls in one body. Su starts walking and tells her to shut up as Gu reaches the Grand Master rank and wonders if this is the power of the sealed Marcus realm. He remarks that he can't believe all of his talents can be improved at the same time in an instant, admitting that it's really terrifying. He slowly gets up, explaining that the Tao Heavenly Code consumed a lot of heavenly fortune value after only one level of breakthrough, so it seems that the level of this technique is quite high. He doesn't think much of it since the heavenly fortune value can be earned back as long as the system's present. Hu cheerily tells Yi Chen that it's great to harvest from him, and he hopes Chen can contribute a little more to his heavenly fortune because his time of death is going to be arriving soon. In the dungeons, Yi Chen angrily questions what the hell is going on and says he's been able to overcome any difficulty he's encountered over the past 3 years, but has never been humiliated like this. He angrily punches the wall before a woman calls his name, and he recognizes her as his master in shock. Of course, the master is a beautiful-looking girl. Chen asks his master where she's been before and why she didn't come to his aid when he needed her, so she explains that there was a powerful wisp of a divine thought present at that time, and she suspected that the enemy behind her fall had something to do with it and chose not to show up to avoid the risk. She tells him that he shouldn't be reckless, so he angrily asks if she wants him to give up Su King as well with her physique. His master hurriedly stops him from saying anything and says this matter needs to be considered in the long run. Hu Chang has a terrifying history, and there are strong people behind him, so they can't fight back. Chen believes he just had bad luck for a while and doesn't think much of it, hearing which the master remarks that he hasn't learned from his recklessness, which is why his state of mind is really too immature. She says the most important thing is to get him out of this situation, and she can feel that there are many strong people in this dungeon. Chen suddenly exclaims that he has an idea and says the reason why the Taixuan Holy Land can sit on the dragon vein for 100 years and not fall is that the other sects are afraid of the supreme leader, but what they don't know is that the supreme leader passed away over 300 years ago, so if Master can leak this news out, the sects that have long desired the dragon vein will definitely make a move and attack the palace, then he can take advantage of the chaos and escape. She says the Taixuan Holy Land will be destroyed in that scenario, even when they've been looking after him all these years, so he declares that he doesn't care because they were the ones who were unkind to him in the first place, so he's going to let them know what happens when they offend him. Listening in on their conversation, Go inwardly questions if the chants they're talking about is a remnant of the soul of a powerful man from the past. Meanwhile, Su King asks Gu Chang if the upper world is really that big as her spirit tells her that Gu is a young and talented man with a great mind. Gu asks her to just go up and see for herself what the upper world is like, so she asks if he's joking when you can't break the boundary barrier without the strength of the Void God realm. Nowadays, most of the strongest people in the Eastern Wastelands are only half steps to the Grand Master realm, so she has no chance of reaching the upper realm. He wonders if it's strong and claims that it really doesn't seem much when you visit the upper realm. She pauses and asks if he would be able to protect her if she was in the upper world. Gu asks what she means by that, so she admits that she knows it will be difficult for her to please him at her current status, but she's willing to serve him however she can. The system states that Su King's temperament has changed, which has resulted in Yi Chen's luck getting decreased by 40 and Hu's heavenly fate value increasing by 200. Surprised, Hu says this makes things even simpler and asks Su if she likes him, since it seems like her attitude has changed a bit too fast, so it looks like she's sacrificing herself to get him to let go of Yi Chen. Shocked, she claims that she doesn't dare to do that since she knows she can't look him in the eyes with her beauty and just wants to show him her sincerity, hoping that he won't mind what happened today. He acts surprised, asking if this is how she will repay Yi Chen, who is deeply in love with her and even risked breaking up with the Taixuan Holy Land for her. She regretfully says she's unable to change the situation of Yi Chen, and the sake of her sect and her father is more important than anything else. When he doesn't say anything, she reveals that she actually has the Nine-Yang body physique, which no one other than her knows about. The system reports that Su King's submissive heart was revealed and Yi Chen's luck has been damaged by 40 points while Hu's heavenly value has increased by 200 points. Shocked, Hu inwardly exclaims that this is a perfect furnace technique and admits she looks really sincere, noticing that Chen's luck value has decreased by more than 300 points combined with the situation of Taixuan's sanctuary and his identity. Su King is a woman who cares about the big picture, knows the trade-offs, and has a smart mind. He maliciously thinks it's better to be a villain and asks how she's just revealing this to him. She questions what she is compared to the thousands of years of hard work her family has put in. She says that as long as he can help her out of the value, she is willing to dedicate herself to him. Seeing her blushing, Hu asks the system if Yi Chen's luck will backfire if he uses this opportunity to destroy him. Is Bro actually going to use the hot girl against the main character? The system informs Gu that according to today's Kai situation between Su King and Yi Chen, if he goes further, the Kai is likely to backfire. Gu annoyingly admits he shouldn't have thought it would be this easy and asks Su why she told him a secret like this so easily, so she says she's relying on his character. As he gets up, he says he'll pretend he didn't hear what she said about and asks her to please go back if she intends to impress him. Surprised, she slowly reaches out to him, but he slaps her hand away and asks her to please behave herself before walking away. Su's spirit remarks that even a beauty that came to his feet can't attract his attention, so he really is puzzling. Su wearily sits down and admits Gu didn't do anything wrong in the hall after thinking carefully, but she had a preconceived notion and thought he was a bad man. She wonders if she misjudged him, as the system states that Su King's view has changed. Gu wonders if she's trying to deceive herself and decides to go harvest Yi Chen himself. In the dungeons, Go tells him that, as expected of Yi Chen, there are the remains of one of the old powerhouses behind him. When Chen spots Gu, he angrily asks what he's doing here, so he remarks that he's obviously here to see him, but corrects himself and states that he's here to meet the powerhouse behind him. Shocked, Chen claims to not know what he's talking about, so Gu tells him to stop pretending because he can't fool anyone with that expression. He asks Chen if he intends to hide here until the end, and if that isn't rude, before Chen's master appears and says she has no intention of making an enemy out of him, shocking Chen. She asks Gu why he's trying to make things difficult for her, when she's just a remnant of her soul, so Gu just explains that he was wondering who'd help a loser like Yi Chen become so successful and was curious about what the power was. He inwardly says he's surprised the powerhouse is such a beautiful girl, and states that a good bird chooses a tree to live in and a good minister chooses a master to serve, but it would be a waste of talent for her to stay at Yi Chen's side. She unknowingly wonders if he wants to cause trouble for them, as Chen angrily curses Gu for daring to attack his master after already having taken his Su King away. Gu says he doesn't want to take the blame for this and tells Chen that he also knows she was willing to choose him over Chen from the start. He claims that this is the law of survival of all things in the world. He effortlessly destroys the gates to Chen's cell and tells him to not delay his master any longer if he really wants what's best for her. He addresses her next and asks if she thinks a remnant of a soul can live long in this world. He claims that he can return her to her former glory on top of helping her recover her body if she decides to go with him, so Chen threatens to rip his mouth open if he keeps talking nonsense, since this is between him and his master, Akdu Chael. The system states that Yi Chen's state of mind continues to be damaged and has resulted in a luck loss of 20 points. Gu tells the master that she should know, other than his origin, he is much better than Yi Chen in many aspects. He knows Chen can provide her with the aura to nourish her soul, but he seems more like a cage for her considering the rate at which they're progressing. Chen hurriedly asks her to not listen to his nonsense, since he's surely lying to her, so she inwardly wonders if he's really trying to piss Chen off and why he's using this tactic when it wouldn't be hard for him to instantly kill Yi Chen here and now with his current stats. She questions whether or not she's being paranoid and thinking he's trying to win her over, and admits Gu Chang didn't do anything wrong. On the contrary, it was Yi Chen who unforgiving from the beginning and made things difficult for him. Gu asks if she's considered it, so she explains that she has decided to not leave Chen now when she's accepted his help when she was in a crisis. Gu offers to give her some time to think about it and discloses that he won't pursue the matter of Chen further if she changes her mind. He explains that it's not possible for even the Teixuan Holy Land to cancel his punishment and restore him to his original position. He adds that he can give a reward to Su King as well, infuriating Chen before his master asks Gu to stop and says she appreciates his sincerity. He asks her to think about it again and says he has a gift for her before leaving. He reveals a small chest, shocking Chen and her as it opens to reveal the ancient soul cultivation holy pill, the God-gathering pill. Later, Chen infuriatingly says he gets what Gu Chang is doing and claims that he's trying to humiliate him and take away everything that belongs to him. He adds that what he didn't expect was his master to surrender to his enemy because of a pill, so she asks what he's talking about when everything she did was to help him get out of here. Chen tells her to do as he says and spread the news if she truly thinks she's doing it for him, so she regretfully agrees to follow his orders if he insists so much. As she's disappearing, he cheerily says he knew she wouldn't leave him alone. The system states that a rift has grown between Yi Chen and his master, which has resulted in a loss of 80 luck value points. Hayes asks Gu why he won't just kill Yi Chen if all he needs is the remnant of the soul, so Gu asks him if he remembers why they came to this world. Shocked, Hayes questions it's because of the ultimate weapon, which Gu affirms and reveals that is for the weapon of the 8 desolate demon gods in the ancient times, the 8 desolate demon spear. He inwardly remarks that according to the normal script, Yi Chen would have entered the ancient ruins by chance. When cornered by the soldiers, he would get the approval of the weapon. Then he attacked them with the spear and reversed the situation, but now he can only be a treasure mouse hunting for him. He asks Hayes to keep a close watch on Yi Chen because he's going to close down for a while now. When Hayes leaves, he opens the system mall and opens the martial arts and treasures section as the system informs him that he has insufficient destiny value and above supreme level feats are not open, so the techniques below the heavenly level have not been included. He selects divine god inscriptions and remarks that it's a heavenly technique that allows a cultivator to directly cultivate to the void god realm and only requires 50 heavenly fate points. He selects it. 3 days later, as the Lord of Tixuan is flying over the Holy Land with Su King, he sees that 3 half-step feudal lord experts personally led the crowd to come. A Lord Shou Hu tells him to cut the crap because they only rely on Supreme Su to occupy the spiritual veins for thousands of years. Now that he has passed away, it's time for them to enjoy the spiritual vein. Zhao Tian declares that because they are the top clans in the eastern wilderness, the Lord should voluntarily hand over the spiritual vein and lower himself to the next level, and none of the feudal lords will kill any of them. The Lord angrily declares that the spiritual veins are the foundation of his holy land for several years, so they can't just be handed over like that, questioning if they really think their sacred land is easy to bully. Chu Wuji says it seems like he's refusing to cooperate and asks if he thinks the Taixuan Holy Land is still able to fight against the 3 families with its own strength. The Lord admits he doesn't know where he got the information and asks if he thinks that the Holy Land will have no other support even without the Supreme Leader. He worryingly notices that Gu Chang hasn't come out yet, so Su King admits she was too hasty last time and caused Mr. Gu to lose her trust in him, so she's not sure he will help them. The worst he can say is no. Zhao Tian remarks that it looks like the Holy Land has some connections with the upper world, but Chu Wuji claims that the upper world has been isolated from the eastern wilderness for a long time and questions how the Lord would have the ability to do that. He adds that with his great Sun Dynasty's Wuji Tower, a place he can fight even if a king-sealed realm comes. The other lords are shocked to see the imperial weapons in his possession, since they thought they had been destroyed in the Millennium War. The Lord nervously admits he will have to surrender here if Gu doesn't come out of the gate. Seeing the weapons, Su King hurriedly tells him that she's going to beg Gu now, and rushes away. Chu Wuji asks the Lord if he intends to die for the spirit vein, so the Lord annoyingly tells him to cut the crap. Chu Wuji declares that he'll help him die if he really wants to, but a dangerous shockwave suddenly runs through the entire land, alarming the feudal lords. Xiao Qiu worryingly says this is comparable to the power of the King realm and questions if the Su Taishang is really dead. Meanwhile, Gu, who's sitting in his room, remarks that it looks like everyone is here and that it looks like the show is about to begin. As Su King arrives at Gu Chang's house, she remarks that the feudal lords from the other sects must have been frightened by the shockwave just now, so father has to hold them off while she asks Mr. Gu. A hand suddenly stops her from saying anything, and Yi Chen assures her that it's just him. Shocked, she asks how he got out, so he promises to explain later and says he'll take her out of here now since they have to get away from the fire pit that is Taixuan Holy Land. She lets go of his hand and says she won't be leaving Taixuan. He hurriedly asks why she's acting so stubborn right now and if she really thinks Gu Chang can save the Holy Land of Taixuan with his own strength. He suspects that she's under pressure by him, but she tells him to shut up because Gu has never forced her to do anything, but she's always been impure, so she's tried to please him with the intention of gaining peace in the sacred land of Taixuan through her sexuality. As he watches her in shock, she hysterically asks if he has to strip away her last shred of dignity and if he thinks she will betray the sect and run away with him. Ain't no way bro just got humiliated and DMP'd. She tells Chen that the Holy Land has trained him for 10 years, but even at a time like this, he never thinks about expending energy to save the sect. She wipes off a tear and says his self-righteousness and selfishness just makes people feel bad. Chen's master tells him to let it go, going even if this is a shame, but Chen disbelievingly says this is not the king he knows and thinks Gu Chang has used some sort of evil magic on her. Hu smiles when the system informs him that Yi Chen and the heroine have finally broken up. He remarks that the time has come. Su King suddenly hears the door opening and hurriedly says she can't let Gu see her with Yi Chen. She quickly summons a sword and drives it through Yi Chen and shocking him. As he disbelievingly looks at her, she apologizes because she has to get rid of him. But she takes the blade out, his wound instantly heals, and says they will have a long time to think about this. He quickly flees, after which Su turns around to face Gu and admits she has let him down. He tells her she did a good job, but warns that the situation will be deadly when she meets Yi Chen next time. He asks if she regrets it, but she declines because she decided to follow Gu and knew this day was going to come sooner or later. He embraces her and says her problem is his problem from now on. He inwardly explains that since Su King has broken up with Yi Chen today, there is no need to be indifferent to her in the future because she still has a very high fortune after all, which doesn't make this a bad thing. The system informs him that he's triggering the fortune event and that the host's fortune's points will be increased by 60 and the fate value will be increased by 300. Confused, Gu wonders if it's possible that the way he can raise is not only to suppress the Sun of Fortune, but also to attract some people with great fortune, so it seems like there is one more way to go from now on. Su King hurriedly tells Gu that she has come to ask for an urgent favor. He remarks that he knows what's going on here and assures her that they won't be able to touch the Taexuan Holy Land as long as he's here. As the Lord is facing off against the feudal lords, Zhao Tian tells him that they do not want to make too much of a mess and asks him to let them pay their respects if the supreme leader is still here. The Lord admits he doesn't know where they got that information, but it's true that the supreme sect leader is dead. Zhao asks what that spirit fluctuation was just now before Xiaofu says they'll go in and find out. An enraged voice suddenly orders them to shut up, and the lords realize that something's coming. Hu Cheng arrives in front of the feudal lords with Su King and asks what kinds of barbarians are disturbing his spiritual training. Xiao cackles and asks the lord if his so-called support is just a little kid. Su Texuan remarks that he should take back what he just said because they cannot afford to offend this lord. Xiao rushes forward and says they'll see whether or not that's true. He clashes with Gu, but it's revealed that his attack was effortlessly blocked as the smoke clears. Hu grabs his fist and twists his arm before throwing him away. Shocked, Zhao questions how there can be such a young Grand Master of a realm in the Eastern Desert Holy Land as Chu Wuji tells Gu that it's good to have talent, but he should know how to hold back, and no matter where he comes from, it's best to not get involved in the Taexuan Holy Land. Gu says the Master of Taexuan Holy Land is his matter from now on, so Chu remarks that they can't blame them for being unkind, since he insists on dying. The feudal lords all rush forward together, but Gu grabs Xiao's sword and stops Zhou's attack before Chu commands the imperial weapon to fall on him. As it crashes down on him, Chu maliciously says that even if you are talented, there are many geniuses from ancient times, but not many of them can grow up. Xiao asks him if he really thinks he can fight against the three families by himself just because he has the power of the Grand Master realm. Su King worryingly turns to the Lord, who says they never would have been able to beat Gu if they didn't have the Imperial Wuji Tower. Zhao asks if they have anything to say now, but Xiao declares that they should just go inside and take control of the veins. Suddenly, light starts to dissipate from the tower as it starts to crack, and Chu watches in shock, declaring that this can't be possible before the tower suddenly shatters and throws them all black. Emerging from within, Gu announces that when you look at the whole world, the hierarchy is strict and there are many strong people. Many sects in the lower realms probably won't have more than a handful of Holy Lord realm practitioners in their lifetime, and the Grand Master realm is very rare and is just 2 steps below the Void God realm. He draws a line, seeing which the lords suddenly try to shield themselves before he declares that they are all ants and throws it towards them, completely obliterating their entire army. Xiao reminds Chu Wuji that he said he could fight in the King realm, but he remains speechless and suddenly spits out blood. He disbelievingly asks Gu who the hell he is before Gu chants the spell. Limitless eternal life. Heavenly kingdoms, old men getting their butts kicked is my favorite form of entertainment. Half a month later, outside of Zhangjiao, some citizens discuss how Gu Chang is rumored to be from the upper world. One says the young lord himself admitted it that day and claims they heard the lord crushed all the elites of the 3 powers that attacked the Holy Land Taexuan with just 1 strike, and even the great Sun Dynasty's Wuji Tower was destroyed. Another remarks that the luck of the Holy Land isn't that bad since they hugged an even bigger leg after the death of a supreme leader, so his friend says that's because of Su King, the daughter of Su Taexuan, who is known as the most beautiful woman in the eastern wilderness. They start joking about Yi Chen and question how he can be worthy of the most beautiful woman in the east wilderness before a pool of fire suddenly appears beneath them and starts charging up. Puzzled, they wonder what is before it suddenly explodes as Yi Chen walks off and vows to repay the shame he experienced 100 times over to the Holy Land, Taexuan and Gu Chang. Meanwhile, in the palace, the feudal lords claim that the Taexuan Holy Land is growing in power, and they will be relying on Lord Su. Su cheerily thanks them for their kindness, and Chu Wuji says they were able to stay here in peace thanks to his kindness. They declare that the 3 forces will support the lead of the Holy Land Taexuan and will do whatever it takes from now on. When Su King laughs, Gu inquires about it, so she asks if he heard what the lords said and remarks that they're all old men but change face as fast as a 3-year-old. An assistant arrives, informing them that the 3rd prince of the Xia dynasty in the central region has sent an invitation to discuss the Tao. He asks if it's the great Xia dynasty, so Su King explains that it's the royal family of the central state with a deep and unfathomable heritage, and it is said that thousands of years ago there were also strong people who ascended to the upper world. When the 3rd prince was born, the Tao's voice echoed for 3,000 miles, so he is also an extremely talented person. Gu remarks that the marquee left on the God-gathering pill indicates that Yi Chen was also heading towards the central state, so it looks like it's time to change his route and maybe he'll run into a new dish. He asks Su King to make arrangements so that they can leave together in 3 days. As she leaves, he asks Hades if he ascended to the upper world in the Central State. Hades confirms that he ascended from Central State in the celestial green realm 30,000 years ago. At that time, when he had just entered the upper world, he was weak and was controlled by a great sect to do hard labor to dig spirit mines. Thanks to the help of the sect elder, he was able to escape from the sea of suffering. Otherwise, he would have probably died in the spirit mine. Gu says that's good and tells him he can visit his family again because they will be heading to the Central State in 3 days. Hades happily thanks him for the consideration he's showing towards his slave, but Gu says he doesn't need to act like that since they were going anyways. He inwardly says this is a small thing that can make Hades work for him with all his heart and soul and show his personality at the same time. 3 days later, in the central heavenly domain in the Central State, a teacher tells her class that everything in heaven and earth has its own nature, as the old saying goes, and they call it Kai. She suddenly notices that a student, Lai Tian, is asleep and annoyingly asks how he's sleeping in class again. A student says it's a disgrace to be in this academy with a loser like Lin Qian, and another says he wouldn't be in the same room with them if he didn't come from the ancient Lin family, and if his sister wasn't an elder at the academy. A girl says Elder Lin Huhan is really unlucky to have a brother like him before the teacher angrily asks Li Tian if he's listening to her. He suddenly gets up and declares that the king is not willing. The students start laughing, so he hurriedly looks around and asks where he is, so a student asks him if he's tired of sleeping and explains that this is the celestial green realm in the Central State heavenly domain. Shocked and confused, he realizes the heavens didn't reject him and that God let a remnant of his soul take over his body. The teacher says that's enough and asks how long he's going to fool around before informing him that he'll be expelled from the academy, and then even the family won't be able to protect him if he doesn't break through the spirit sea realm from this month. He gets up and starts cackling, questioning how he can be trapped by a mere spirit sea realm. He declares that he will break through within half a day and will trample them all under his feet. The sky suddenly turns dark and the system informs Gu that a new child of fortune has been detected. The Grand Elder suddenly calls a meeting, confusing the members before she announces that she can feel the spirits of her ancestors today, shocking them. A member asks if she's talking about the spirit of the Elder Lin who ascended 30,000 years ago. She says the ancestor is coming back and declares that her Lin family will eventually recover. As the ship arrives in the Central State, Hu Cheng asks the system about how much of Yi Chen's fortune is left today. When it says there are 230 points, he asks if key backfire exists because there is a big difference between his fortune and the so-called Son of Fortune. The system agrees and states that as the host's own fortune improves, the backfire will gradually decrease. Gu remarks that it seems like, along with his unusual appearance, the Heavenly Way is unable to protect the Sons of Fortune. He wonders what his black fortune means and if it's just there because he's the villain. He says the current situation is still manageable and decides to get his strength back since there is a new dish. Su King remarks that he seems to be in a good mood today, but he wonders when her fortune reached 400 points. He grabs her and says it's good to have a beautiful woman by his side, admitting that she has many secrets he doesn't know about. He asks about the power in the Central State since they've arrived, so she explains that the Central State is divided into 8 domains, among which the Central Heavenly Domain is the most prosperous, and the third prince of the Grand Xia dynasty organizes the conference there. Gu remarks that a discussion with a group of lower world snobs doesn't interest him as the townspeople excitedly gossip about how the ancestor of the Lin family has returned from the upper world whose barrier has been closed for thousands of years. Hearing a group of men discussing this, Yi Chen says this would have been a good place to stay if he didn't have more important things going on right now. His master reminds him that the ancient family is rich and she knows he has a lot of secrets, but the most important thing is to find the relic. He agrees and says they'll see what they do with Gu Chang later. The civilians gather to see the so-called ancestor and wonder who the young man in the white robe is as Gu tells Hades to talk about his business and not mind him since he rarely comes back here, but Hades says he can't ignore him. Su King is surprised to see a man as strong as Hades working under Gu as the civilians watching are shocked to discover that the ancestor is an old slave to Gu Chang. He says he'll go out with Su King then, but a man calls for his daughter Lei Qivan and tells her to show the Lord Gu around the neighborhood since she knows it well. The teacher from before, Qivan, is surprised but agrees and greets herself to Gu, who says she has a nice name and asks her to show him and Su King around and take them for a stroll. She happily agrees as Li Tian feels a sudden pain in his chest and wonders if it's because of the obsession the original owner of this body had with his sister. He declares that he is a heaven-slaying god and questions when his mind has ever been affected by these mundane matters. He suddenly senses something in Su King and realizes she has the nine-yang body. He says this is what he needs and Evely remarks that it looks like his heart disease can be cured this way. He admits he didn't expect this guy to have such a good fortune, and that it's a pity such a precious body is in his possession. Meanwhile, Gu remarks that he intended to go out and look for the child of fortune, but he didn't expect him to be delivered to his doorstep like this, seeing that he has 500 points of fortune value. He wonders why he feels hostility from Li Tian when he hasn't done anything to him yet, and if it's because of Lei Qiuhan. He smiles and says that's good, hoping he gets to live a little longer. After strolling, Gu asks Lei Qiuhan why she would call her brother a loser, so she says it's commonly known since he doesn't have a talent for cultivation and was born with a bad body. Even though she wants to defend him, there's nothing she can do at the end of the day. Gu says he's a pathetic boy, but he's lucky to have such a beautiful and caring sister like you to protect him. She assures him that Lin Tian's actually quite smart and has recently started to focus on his training and studies as well. He asks if he only recently started to focus on practice, remarking that the loser's personality turned around overnight, so someone else must have taken over the body stream or could have been reborn in a past stream. She affirms this and says his stagnant cultivation level finally broke through, and he showed great progress in potion brewing. Once he even pointed out a mistake of the elders, who says her guidance is helpful and he appreciates her as his sister if he's truly changed, and confirms that she was harsh on him before for his own good as well. Surprised, Lei Qiuhan wonders if he's trying to comfort her and says she never thought he would understand her so well when even Li Tian doesn't and thinks she's too harsh on him. Qiuhan tells him that Lei Tian can change his reputation, and she just thinks she's a diamond in the rough who needs to work harder since in just a few days, his talent has grown by a lot. She remarks that he might be a diamond now, but he couldn't even break through to the Spirit Sea before. Who asks how he was able to create pills when he couldn't even break through the Spirit Sea realm, and questions if the Lin family has some lost ancient method to teach him. Shocked, Qiuhan suddenly pauses in her tracks, and Gu remarks that it seems like she's starting to slowly get suspicious of Lin Tian's changes, so harvesting the Fortune's Sun will be much simpler than he thought. The system points out the rules for killing a child with 0 luck points. If he kills a child with 0 luck points, he will receive an additional reward from the system. Surprised, Gu remarks that Yi Chen as his treasure hunting mouse cannot move for the time being, so they will have to harvest a little of Lin Tian for now. At night, Lin Qiuhan visits Gu and Su King to give them some spiritual cakes she made. Su happily thanks her for coming in the night, and when Qiuhan doesn't see Gu inside, she bows and excuses herself. Su inwardly remarks that Qiuhan fell in love with Gu when they first met. Gu asks if she's jealous, so she blushes and says she knows his mind is too deep and understands the fact that it is difficult to please him, so whether or not she is jealous doesn't matter. She walks away and says he can keep Qiuhan with him if he's interested. He smiles and wonders when she became a liar, while as Lin Qiuhan is walking back, she runs into Lin Tian and asks what he's doing here, so he inquires about where she was going this late at night and if she visited Gu. She stays silent for a moment and tells him that he doesn't need to worry about her, so he should just focus on cultivating himself. He grabs her hand and tells him to not be fooled by Gu's appearance because he is not a good man. Qiuhan whips her hand away and asks how he's not a good man when he's humble, courteous, and gentle as a jade. Bro, she's already head over heels for the Giga Chad Rizzlard. She annoyingly tells him that she'll be relieved when he has 1/100th of the excellence of Gu, so he angrily asks how she can be stupid enough to not see this. Surprised, she remarks that he's been acting strangely and questions what Gu can have in mind for her even if he's not a good person. She swivels around and starts walking away, telling him that he should start thinking about himself. As she's leaving, she admits his cultivation skills have become better and he has a lot of ki now. She realizes she forgot to ask him about how he created pills and wonders if there's someone guiding him, since even when she pressured him to practice before, he didn't focus, but now he's been going around by himself and doesn't return for many days. She suddenly realizes something and turns around to realize he's disappeared. The system states that Lin Qiuhan has doubts about Qin Tian's change in behavior, which has led to Lin Tian losing 50 luck points. Gu remarks that things are going according to plan and guesses that Lin Tian won't be able to hold back soon and will eventually attack him. Meanwhile, Lin Tian prepares in a forest and says he wanted to wait for the right time to get close to the woman named Su King before dealing with him, but if he insists on interfering with Lei Qiuhan and him, he notices that obsession of his body is bothering his mind and declares that he'll let Gu die since he's so eager. The 99 times of bewitching incense soaked with the bloods of poisonous creatures, plus 3 different kinds of bone wax from beasts with its own 15 years of life. He chants, commanding the spell to take his life and destroy his true soul with the great power of heaven and earth. He uses the extraterrestrial heavenly demon spell, and a vicious red beam fires off towards the town. He rarely sits down, admitting that he's too weak to perform a spell like this right now, but with the 15 years he has left, even if Gu manages to stay alive, he'll definitely end up looking like a fool. He maliciously says this is what will happen when he dares to touch the things of the heavenly gods. A gigantic skeleton rushes through the air towards Gu Chang, who is quietly sitting in his room, and remarks that it's pretty much what he expected. He notices the aura is similar to the heavenly devil, but this is an extraterrestrial heavenly demon spell, wondering how much Lin Tian can bring out with his current cultivation level. Gu creates a gigantic avatar and tells Lin Tian that he's only making a fool out of himself by using his demonic spells against him. The skeleton angrily rushes towards the giant, but it penetrates its body, grabs its core, and instantly crushes it, sending out a shockwave throughout the town, alarming everyone as well as Lin Tian. The onlookers wonder if something happened with the ancestor of the Lin family, while Lin Tian is lying in a deserted shack with a small pool of blood beneath him and admits that something went terribly wrong. Meanwhile, Gu remarks that he didn't expect a spell like that would make his spirit grow much stronger and notices that there's also a wisp of the original lifespan. The system states that Lin Tian's lifespan has been greatly reduced and his fortune has been damaged by 150 points. Gu swallows the wisp of the lifespan, happily admitting he's getting such a great gift despite not having done anything. He adds that in this way, the Son of Fortune made really good progress towards his own death by playing with his life. Hades and the rest of the Lin family appear in front of his gate and ask to be punished since they are not capable enough to protect him. He walks out to see all the Lin members on their knees who ask for forgiveness for their poor supervision. Su King asks if he's alright, but he tells her it's not important because a spell of that level can't hurt him, although he would like to know who is strong enough to use such a technique in the lower world. Hades explains that if the spell is destroyed, the person who summoned it will most definitely suffer repercussions. A man vows to gather all his forces to investigate and find the guy and force him to suffer for his crimes. Gu smiles and sees that Lin Tian is even worse than an ordinary person. Lai Qian hurriedly knocks on Lin Tian's door and tells him to come out because Gu Chang has called everyone to the council. Inside, Lin Tian is wearily sitting on the ground and wonders what he can do when he can't even walk steadily because of how damaged his organ is. He realizes that everyone will know they tried to do something to Gu if people find him like this. He desperately questions if he, being the God King of Heaven, has fallen here like this. Lin Qian annoyingly says she'll knock the door down if he doesn't come out, and he realizes he can fake his own death, since the original Lin Tian's body has already been taken by him. As long as his heart veins are severed, he won't seem alive and they can't find out that he's the cultivator. So long as he can bear this period of time, he will be revived by the secret method of the soul and can then hide unnoticed. He manically tells Gu Chang that they will settle this score later and impales his own heart, killing himself. Lin Qian breaks open the door only to see his immobile body before she starts screaming in horror. The next morning, Hades apologizes for his poor discipline. Gu asks if they found the person, so Hades regretfully says they found a kid called Lin Tian who is usually very unpopular around here, but by the time they found him, he had already lost his heart and veins and was dead in a pool of blood, surprising Gu. The man asks to be punished because Lin Tian's assassination attempt on Gu Chang is a shame for their whole clan. Deep in thought, Gu wonders if he committed suicide when he failed to kill him. He notices that the system hasn't alerted him yet and wonders if he's playing dead. He remarks that with Lin Tian's damaged soul, he can't even resist the wind of love in heaven and earth after he leaves the body, wondering where he could have gone. As the Lin clan members are silent, they talk down on Lin Qian as Lin Qian gloomily says she thought Lin Tian had changed his character, but he suddenly went and committed an evil deed without regard for his own clan. Su King's spirit tells her this is the taste of power and remarks that it's obvious that Gu Chang hasn't done anything yet, but everyone in the Lin family is terrified and there's a lot of resentment against the man named Lin Tian. The system states that Lin Tian has been rejected by the entire clan and has lost 100 points, adding 500 points to Gu's heavenly value. Surprised, Gu says Lin Tian gave him so many heavenly fate values after that and remarks that it's good since he doesn't have much value left and probably the last thing he has left is his bond with Lin Qian. Hades asks Gu to punish this old slave because Lin Tian is a descendant of his now. Gu says there's something really odd about this and explains that Ms. Qian told him about Lin Tian, so he doesn't think a person who was trash before would attempt something like killing him in the upper world. It is not uncommon to use secret techniques to take over a person's soul and manipulate their body. Even though this matter has arisen due to Lin Tian, it should have nothing to do with the Lin family overall. He claims he's not an insincere person and declares that this matter will end here due to how long the Lin family has been following him. The Lin members gratefully thank him for being so generous and promise to definitely investigate this matter and give him an explanation. He says they may leave now and orders them to not burn or cremate Lin Tian's body. He inwardly says he has to, after all, harvest him and is going to wait for him to come back. As Lin Qian's leaving, he asks her if she can take him around the city in a few days since he's bored. She bows and agrees, saying she can never refuse, as Gu remarks that the system has already started and also gets heavenly fate value when he subdues those related with the Fortune's son. With more than 200 points, it shouldn't be difficult to use some tricks to make Lai Qiuhin's closer to his. He wonders if she will be like Su King, who subconsciously raises her own fortune points and at the same time raises his fortune points, or if it's just a special characteristic unique to her. In any case, he thinks Lin Qiuhin should stay around for a while to check it out. 3 days later, numerable ships start arriving and townspeople question why all the 8 domains are coming to Central State. Someone explains that the ancestors of the Lin family have returned with a mysterious lord who is said to be from the immoral sects of the upper world, and anyone who can get in touch with him will leap to the top of the Dragon's Gate and overlook the 8. Along with that, even the venue of the Daoist conference for the younger generation in the central region was changed to the ancient city of the Lin family. Another civilian adds that he's heard many secluded ancient powers emerge from their hiding places, and they all seem to be heading towards that lord. Zhang Tian meets Jin Yang and says he's heard his cultivation has improved a lot, but Jin Yang says he found out that Zhang Tian has already completed the divine power technique not too long ago. Zhang Tian says he's not as good as them all and heard Jin fought a handsome man from the eastern wastelands not too long ago, but in the end it both sympathized with each other and became brothers with different surnames. Jin ecstatically says his little brother's talent is definitely the kind that comes along once every 100 years. He fought hundreds of moves without losing to Jin, who was in the middle stage of the divine power realm, and even forced him to use his greater sun body to suppress it. Surprised, a man asks if a man like that actually exists, so Jin reveals that his little brother, with his calm and collected manner, is a man who can achieve great things. Unfortunately, he offended the big man and was victimized, so he had no choice but to leave his hometown and come to the Central State. Surprised, the man asks if he's talking about the guy who's been making the rounds for a while now and reveals that he heard he's a jealous man who wanted to eat a swan's flesh but failed. Chan angrily says that isn't true because it's obvious that the woman betrayed his little brother by trying to climb up the ladder, and then she spread false rumors everywhere. Zhang says he should let them get to know him someday. They all suddenly turn around to see Gu Chang, Su King, and Lin Qiuhin arrive and are greeted by the sacred elder of the Lin family. They recognize Qiuhin as the proud daughter of the Lin family who became an elder of the Daji family at a very young age. They recognize Su as the Eastern Desert Holy Land Tixuan's saint, which means that the man wearing white clothes is Gu Chang. Shocked, a guy says he didn't expect to see him here and excitedly says this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so they should go and show their respects, but Jin Yang angrily says he can't believe he saw him here. Qiuhin and Su overlook the environment as he remarks that the man who built this pavilion was a master of enjoyment. Qiuhin asks what the meaning of cultivation is in his opinion, so he says this so-called cultivation is just a struggle in the world. He recites a poem, stating that with the body as a raft, the mortal man is the sea, the waves are breaking, the intention is on the other side. Su King repeats what he said as Qiuhin says his insight is really different and profound and just 2 words are like the sound of Tao. She guesses the cultivation in the upper world must be more mysterious and vast than she can imagine. He asks if she wants to go, so she regretfully says she won't dare do that and knows what Lin Tian did to him is absolutely unforgivable, and he even warned her that day. Gu tells her to not blame herself because he didn't expect things to turn out like this that day, but if she really feels guilty, there's something she can do for him. She asks him to please tell her, so he asks her to please pay attention to her brother's body, considering his performance. Things may not be as simple as someone just having controlled his body. He adds that he thinks the body has also been taken over by some unknown being since there are, after all, many secret arts similar to this one in the world, and it's not impossible to come back from the dead in the future. Shocked, she asks if such secret arts really exist and reveals that when she found Lin Tian, he had already lost his heart and veins and was completely lifeless. She inwardly panics and wonders if he's speaking the truth about Lin Tian faking his death, so Gu assures her that he's just guessing and asks her to be cautious about it. Gu Chang remarks that if Lin Qiuhin really sees Tian coming back from the dead with her own eyes, the last ties between her and Lin Tian are probably going to break. Once that's done, there won't be much of Lin Tian's fortune left, so he has to keep him alive. The elder arrives to inform Gu that several of the disciples from all of the 8 domains wish to see him, so he tells her to let them all come up since they're already here. The disciples officially greet him, but he says they don't have to be so formal before the guy from before claims that he worships the holy son of the night and wanted to see him for a very long time. Lin Qiuhin expresses surprise upon seeing how respectful they are and remarks that even the proud, snobby princesses are trying to get close to Gu and are paying him respect. She inwardly asks Gu if all this effort is still not able to impress him and remarks that he treats them differently than he treats her. He's a man with great power, yet he treats her with understanding and gentleness, so all in all, he's really good to her. The system informs Gu that he's triggered the event of fortune and remarks that he hasn't been disappointed. He enters the system and says his fortune points went over 300 after taking in Su King and Lin Kyuhen in succession. His current cultivation level is already at the top of the lower realm, so he can keep these heavenly fate values for emergencies. Lin Kyuhen can try to cultivate since, in the pastries she sent before, he can already see a trace of Dan Yi. He decides to give her the elementary explanation of Dan Dao, and how far she can develop in the future will depend on her talent. He suddenly receives a random task, telling him to suppress the Fortune Sun's righteous brother. Surprised, he wonders if this task was triggered by Yan Chen and says that as the Fortune Sun, it's quite possible that Lin Tian met powerful people from big regions. He addresses Chu Xuan and asks if there's any news of Yi Chen. Seeing how nervous Chu Xuan is, the others notice that Gu's looking a little upset. The nameless guy from before remembers hearing something about it and quickly tells Gu that the Golden Sage of the Cavalry's sacred ground has met a talented man from the eastern wilderness. He asks if this is the Yi Chen he's looking for, hearing which Jin Yang suddenly becomes nervous before Gu says he wasn't aware of the man Jin Yang met and inquires about it. Gu asks about the person he met, so Jin Yang hurriedly says he doesn't even know who he's looking for, so Gu emits his powerful aura and commands him to answer truthfully. The other students are shocked, admitting that they've never felt this kind of aura even from the saints and the powerful lords. Jin shakily admits he knows someone named Yi Chen, but he unfortunately can't reveal his whereabouts. Shocked, the guy tells Gu that Jiang must not be in his right mind, but Jiang says he's perfectly level-minded and asks Gu if there is a misunderstanding between him and Yi Chen. Gu stands up and furiously questions how Jiang thinks he's qualified to ask him whether he misunderstood or not. Jiang suddenly falls down from the pain before another disciple shields him from Gu and apologizes for inadvertently offending him. Gu summons Elder Hades, who instantly appears in front of them, shocking the disciples, who are shocked to see that ancestor of the Lin family from 30,000 years ago is a slave to Gu. Gu tells Hades that he doesn't want to hear any more news about the existence of the Cavalry Holy Land. He says he understands, and everyone instantly falls silent in shock, realizing that it's all over. Sun and Kyuvan declare that this is the true identity of the prince, as the system informs Gu that the random task has been completed. The task rating is perfect and he has received 700 points. The citizens in the Cavalry Holy Land urgently try to escape as the land starts getting destroyed. Meanwhile, Yi Chen shockingly realizes what's happening as his master regretfully remarks that things are going in the direction she never intended to face. He infuriatingly declares that he will kill Gu Chang. He tells his master that she doesn't have to tell him to let go of his grudge against Gu. The ancient mysterious realm of Tian Yuan is about to open, so he must get the inheritance of the master of the mysterious realm and the magic weapon that has been sealed for a long time. Gu asks Lin Kuman why she doesn't talk to him anymore since they come back from Phoenix Pavilion. He asks if he scared her, which she admits because she's never seen him like that, but she knows he's good to her. He says it was his fault and gives her the elementary explanation of Dan Dao as an apology to her. Pleasantly surprised, she thanks him for it as Su says he scared her too, but he purposely ignores her. 3 days later, Human says Lin Tian will probably never be her actual brother now and wonders why Gu is so kind to the Lin family, remarking that she just pities Lin Tian. Meanwhile, Lin Tian's body slowly twitches in a prison cell and he wearily gets up. Thanks for watching Gu Chang's story so far. Stay tuned to see his rise to power as he conquers heroes and cements his status as the ultimate villain. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more epic adventures.